Hey, what's up, fellow gamers? BC here, and thanks for tuning in to Gamer Life. This is our story. This week I want to talk about diversity in the games industry and why I believe we're missing the mark.
Okay, so remind me, how exactly does the gaming community, as in the gaming community, I assume you mean all over the world, not just America, because if I have to declare Mitch's law here and say that an American is basing their argument on America but applying it to the world, then I will. Now, if you're saying that the gaming community in the world is somehow missing the mark on diversity, I would say you're a raging idiot, because, as we know, the world is pretty diverse, isn't it, mate? I mean, just look at it. You go to China, you're not going to see many Africans or white people there, unless they're businessmen, or tourists, or whatever, doesn't matter. The same if you were going to Kenya, but that's besides the point. But the fact that you think that in America it's not diverse enough, you're missing the mark somehow, I fail to see that, because it just reflects your demographics. But, well, we'll soon see. Roll the intro.
Hello everyone, this is Champion. Damn it, I can't see a thing in this.
So you've seen probably tons of other videos about this, and a lot of the media that I've read seems to think that diversity, or the lack thereof, is at the core of some of the challenges we're having in the games industry.
I'm going to have to stop you there, mate, for a second, because diversity has nothing to do with the problems that the internet and the gaming industry as well is currently facing. No, the problem is censorship and people like you, ideologues, who are spreading this bullshit about gaming and other internet communities having some kind of diversity problem, despite the fact as well as we do, that it just reflects society at large. It reflects the society of which they live in. If you go to a Japanese gaming website, it's going to be almost entirely Japanese people, maybe a few Westerners here and there. Just like if you go to a other gaming place on the internet, or maybe in real life, and say it's in America, it's going to be mostly white, but with, say, 13% of black people, 5% Latinos, however, I don't know what the amount of Latinos is, and whatever else. That is what is going to be the demographics. That is diverse. That is representation. But no, apparently that's not enough. Everything's got to be 50-50 or 25 or 1/5 or something ridiculous like that. I fail to see how there's a diversity problem. You always talk about a diversity problem, but you never have the numbers, and you never have anything else to back up your claim. It's just an assertion without evidence. And yes, you point to, most gamers are white. Well, yeah, in America and Europe and in Australia, yeah, they are. But that's not a diversity problem. That's just the makeup of a certain country. That's the demographics. You can't help that. You can't artificially change it. If people are going to be gamers, they're going to be gamers, and they will reflect the society in which they live in. It's bullshit.
Take it as far back as Final Fantasy VII with a racist stereotype character, which was Barrett.
Hang on, how the hell is Barrett a racist stereotype? Barrett is not a racist stereotype. They're all thieves, yeah, but he's not a racist stereotype. He does not fit that at all. Just because his skin happens to be darker than the other characters does not mean he is a racial stereotype. How is he a racial stereotype? I dare you, I challenge you to give me evidence to these reasons. Final Fantasy may have a lot of problems in regards to gameplay and, other things, but racial stereotypes is not one of them, considering it's a fantasy game. Although, really, Final Fantasy VII is more of a sci-fi game, but that is a debate for another time. But, seriously, Barrett, one of the most important characters in the game, the right-hand man of Cloud, seriously, his best friend, who, from what I've played, is nothing like that. He is just a character within the game. He is an important character that you use. It's bullshit. That's bullshit, and you know it.
Inside the game, or maybe the quasi-sexist, boob-bouncing physics of a game like Dead or Alive.
You really are being cliched. First, you've got a game that's nearly 20 years old, with a character that isn't a racial stereotype. He's actually, something that Black Lives Matter wish they were, a resistance fighter, a man fighting for a good cause. He's trying to rid the world of an evil corporation government type situation where that was a bit of a Brett King thing then, where basically they're destroying the planet and he's trying to save the planet. He's an eco-warrior of sorts. And dead or alive? Really? Dead or alive? Boobs do bounce. Boobs bounce. That is not sexist. How is it sexist to, show an actual real physical thing from real life? Boobs do bounce. Have you ever seen a boob? Have you ever touched a boob? Have you ever... I don't know. How is that sexist exactly?
Much of what I've read surrounding the issue seems to think that the solution to the problem is adding more diversity on the design and development and publishing side of the house. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad solution, but I have some concerns about the way we as an industry may carry this solution out.
We? Who is we exactly? Who is we? You are not a gamer. You are certainly not part of the industry. You are an ideologue, hipster who has invaded our community to change it from within. That is what you are. You are not a gamer. You are not a true gamer. This is not no true Scotsman fallacy, people. This is genuine. This is true. This guy does not know anything about games. If he knew anything about games, he would know that none of this is racist. None of this is sexist. None of it. He would be arguing against this. But no, because he's a social justice warrior who's only been in the gaming community for, say, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years maybe. He's only in it because it's cool, or because he sees some political thing that he has to change. It has to change. And please, do tell me how this thing that we've been saying, that, diversity for diversity's sake, isn't going to help the community or the industry at all. Do go on, please explain.
I've had a good deal of experience from the military, from the public sector, and also working for private sector corporations. And the lack of diversity is an issue in all three, without a doubt. And from my experience in those fields and what I observed, I believe that our solution to the diversity problem has to be much bigger than just adding more women or maybe more culturally diverse groups to the staffs that work at these organizations.
You're comparing apples and oranges here, mate. I'm sorry, but you're talking about the community and the industry, and you're saying that we need to do more than add more women and more... What? Doesn't make sense. None of this makes any sense. There is no diversity problem within gaming. None whatsoever. They reflect the demographics already. They're reflected. There is no problem here. Nobody's racist, apart from maybe, 0.1% of people, if they are. So what? They're not harming anyone at the moment, are they? And who are they? Tell me these examples. And nobody's doing any of the shit that you're talking about. There is no diversity problem. You think there's a diversity problem because you do not like white people. You do not like the idea of a mostly male space, even though gaming isn't a mostly male space and never has been. That is a stereotype that you guys keep confounding while lamenting when Law and Order, SVU, bloody go with it. And yes, I'm using the same examples last time because it's still relevant. So please, try and solve this problem that you yourselves have made up and caused. Please, do. What is this more drastic action that we need to take other than adding more cultural people and women, even though they're already there in the first place? And bear in mind, you're talking about America and not the rest of the world.
Trying to fix it that way, in my opinion, is trying to put a band-aid on the real cancer. And the real cancer that I think is the culprit for a lot of the issues that we're having across this particular industry with games is a lack of cognitive diversity. I believe...
Cognitive diversity? What are you on about? Wait, do you mean differences of opinions? Differences of thought? Because right now, that's what we have. We have a different groups of people who look different and sound different, and we also have people who think differently, who have different ideas, different politics, different social needs and issues and all sorts of things. We already have that. But of course, an SJW arguing for cognitive diversity. You guys want nothing more but your own ideology as the ruler and the queen, and nothing more. You arguing for cognitive diversity is like a fascist arguing for more Jews in this place.
Cognitive diversity is really at the root of all the other issues that we're having. And so simply trying to fix gender or cultural or religious differences or sexual preference diversity, or maybe even having a quota for how many disabled or wounded warriors you have to hire, is not really dealing with the root of the issue, which I believe is cognitive diversity.
So, let me beg this question to you, sir. Are you saying there's too much cognitive diversity or too little? Because I have no idea what you're getting at, and you're not making any sense whatsoever. At least you're right that these quotas and all this fucking other bullshit isn't going to solve this imaginary problem that you have, created to further your own agenda and to scare the industry into doing your bidding. But, yeah, cognitive diversity from an SJW, I still can't get around that. I just can't. Jesus.
And here's why. We as human beings have a tendency to operate using group dynamics, or in other words, we have a tendency to tribe up with people who look, think, and act like we do. That same tendency exists in all of the weaker managers that I've observed throughout my career.
But in gaming, that doesn't happen. It only really happens when it comes to, are you a fan of a certain type of game, a genre, or something else? It has nothing to do with race in gaming, or whatever of those things. It has nothing to do with them. It has totally to do with taste, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That there are all these different fandoms which also do overlap. They do overlap, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nobody fighting someone over Halo and COD, like which one's better, or whatever. There's no fighting there. There's no prejudice. And yeah, I know you might end up talking about the console peasant versus PC master race, but that is an in-joke. That is not real. I know there's groups about it and there's a Reddit subpage, but it's a joke. It's an in-joke amongst gamers. It's friendly rivalry at most. There is literally no prejudice, no nothing. It's just you people who are the prejudiced and racist ones for seeing all this as a race, sexist, thought, crime, bloody thingy problem, which it actually isn't. There is nothing wrong.
Stronger managers always understand the value of having people on their teams that don't see things the way that they do.
This has nothing to do with diversity in games, or the gaming industry, or the gaming community. This has nothing to do with anything. This tribalistic group psychology thing that you're trying to lecture us on, this has nothing to do with anything at all. It's bullshit. It's groundless.
Especially managers charged with delivering excellent products and services. But the games industry in this particular case reminds me of my time in the public sector. For starters, we as consumers reward games industry bad judgment with our money, the same way that taxpayers reward civil servants for substandard and a lot of times inefficient work.
We do not reward bad behaviour. If we have something that we want, but there's some horrible day one DLC, a lot of gamers will not buy that game for that express purpose. That is why a lot of gaming publishers and developers want to see the end of the second-hand market, because it undercuts them. It means that you can't get the DLC, the day one DLC that rips people off, and they lose out on that. That's why they want to bring things into an electronic age, because then that market is gone, because there's nothing physical to buy. That is not... Nobody is awarding bad behaviour. Nobody. And let's just make this clear. Casual gamers and gamers who don't care about the economic politics and all this other bullshit to do with consumer rights, they're going to buy the games regardless. They'll either pre-order it or they'll buy it on release. But it does not mean that they're rewarding bad behaviour. And I don't get where you're getting how we reward bad service from customer services. I don't understand. What do you mean by that? And again, you're comparing apples to oranges. The gaming industry is a completely different beast to these sectors that you've worked in. You really know nothing. You know nothing at all.
So I believe at present the games industry lacks the market forces necessary to destroy a game that would dare to use a racist stereotype as one of its lead characters.
Because no game has done that. No game has used a racial stereotype, which you consider to be racist, and has fallen because nothing like that has happened. Yes, stereotypes are used in games, but does that make them racist? No. No, it doesn't. That's just your opinion. This is nothing but an assertion from you. That's all it is. That is all it is. And you're forgetting something. Gaming does have the market force to drop a game if it's the most biggest selling industry on the planet right now. I think it does, actually, but never mind.
So I believe until publishers and developers, and this really can apply to any industry, until they begin to foster work environments where cognitive diversity is all but mandatory for their senior staff, all the way down to middle management, all the way down to the lowest people working there. Until that environment is fostered, we're going to continue to see the same white males working in this industry with a couple of women, maybe a couple of minorities peppered in. And we're going to continue to see games that lack any level of diversity and still have sexist or racist tropes in them.
Well, now I know what you mean by cognitive diversity. You mean until we see more social justice warriors, more people who are running the companies that are social justice minded, who will cater to all your needs and all your political whims, who will enforce quotas, enforce all this bullshit, only then will we see the gaming industry pure and fully under your control. That's what you mean by cognitive diversity. You basically mean social justice. So you're actually arguing the exact opposite of what you want. You're not arguing for different modes of opinion. You don't mean anything like that. Because how can we gauge what a person thinks? We're not mind readers. You can't just say, oh yeah, list me all your political views and all your ideas. That's stupid. That's not how you get someone for the job. You're also arguing for the destruction of meritocracy. So also, this is under the guise of his, hatred of white men, because despite the fact that a lot of them in this industry are also Asian. There's a lot of people who are Asian in this industry. He even neglects to mention that. Apparently until social justice takes over, the white guys will still be in power, even though they're not in power. They're just the majority of the population, because they're the demographic that chooses to go into this line of work, while other demographics and women, maybe not so much. And that's not a problem, but he thinks it's a problem because he's a racist fascist. That's why.
But when we solve the cognitive diversity issue, I believe the issues we have with discrimination centered on race, culture, gender, or what have you will begin to fix themselves organically.
Point me to an example of racial and gender discrimination in the games industry. I am still waiting. Final Fantasy VII and Dead or Alive are not examples. Bear in mind, they are very... which Dead or Alive do you even mean at this point? Do you mean 1, 2, or the upcoming 3? And I mean extreme, volleyball. He doesn't mean the fighting game. What do you mean? These are not examples of racism and sexism. Barrett is a black guy in the Final Fantasy game. That is not racism. Just because he's a big man and he has a machine gun and he's in the resistance movement, which I wrongly meant to say because I said they were thieves, but they're not. They're a resistance movement in Final Fantasy VII. I'm sorry, people. Just because he's part of that, how is that a fucking racist stereotype? How is he a racist stereotype? Exactly. But never mind, that's besides the point. These things will fix themselves organically once social justice warriors and their way of thinking becomes the norm. Is that what you're saying? They won't, because you guys cannot be pleased. You will then fight each other like, oh no, we want this, we want that, we want this, we want that. And the quality of games will suffer and the industry will collapse as a result. And that's a fact. That is what you guys do. You invade spaces and then you destroy them. That's why comics are fucking shit at the moment. That is why films are crap at the moment. Because of you. But never mind.
I just can't bring myself to believe that we can fix our issues with diversity by simply employing a hiring quota that says you have to hire this many minorities racially, you have to hire this many disabled people or wounded warriors, you have to take consideration in hiring people with different sexual or religious preferences. I don't think making that part mandatory really gets to the heart of the issue, which is people who think a certain way like to be surrounded by other people who think a certain way.
So you're just going to purge people who have a different way of thinking to you. You're a fascist. or a communist, Stalinist. That's what you are. You're a fascist, pure and simple. You want all these people who have unclean thoughts to be out of the industry or to be forced to think your way. That's what you're arguing. This is not diversity. This is quite the opposite, in fact. That is not diversity. That is homogeneity. But never mind. He's a social justice warrior. So in his head, this is diversity. Nothing but social justice is diversity because he's not seeing it through a mental thing or through thoughts or through opinions. He's seeing it through race. He's seeing it because, like he said, white people. He's talking about white men, to be precise. He's thinking they all think this way. It's all a collectivist kind of thinking. They all think the same, and this is why the industry is like this. It's not. It's a group of like-minded people, regardless of race. It doesn't matter how many people make it up. Fact of the matter is, this industry was built by a diverse people, no matter how many people make up these demographics. And they have decided that this is the workplace industry in these particular publishers. Because let's be honest, all these different gaming companies, they don't all think the same. They don't all have the same philosophies on how to make a game or how to run a business. Again, with the collectivist thinking, everyone has to be in boxes and everyone has to think the same way. We can't all be individuals who have different opinions and ways of running things because then his ideology crumbles. His non-existent argument and problem disappears. It's just assertion after assertion and bullshit ideology with him.
In our human nature, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that.
If there's nothing wrong with it, then how come you've been arguing against it, you idiot?
But you have to create an environment that needs different people to be at the table in order to get your product or your services out. If you can't create that environment, you're going to keep going around the same circle of trying to hire these people, but you're just going to pepper them in one by one, and it's not really going to solve kind of the hive mind mentality, to use a Reddit term.
Now you're just projecting. We don't have a hive mind mentality. We already have an industry with cognitive diversity, at least in the way that you ought to be saying it as it is. But no, diversity in your case is just social justice, okay? We have people with different opinions and different beliefs. This is why the industry is where it is today. It's not because of you people, but because of us. And the way we think differently from each other. That's why it works. But never mind. You just want everyone to think the same. You want to think that everybody is the same. All these groups think the same way, act the same way, and they don't. And you can't just say that this is a bad thing while arguing against it. It doesn't make sense, does it, mate?
Until you address the hive mind and really start to change the thinking, you can't solve it by just adding people to the room. I'll give you an example. Just an extreme example. Let's just say there's a video game developer and it's just all a bunch of sexists on this particular team that's hired to make a game, and they want to make some lewd, just highly suggestive and offensive game. Well, they go out and they hire a woman because they have a quota to hire a certain amount of women into their staff. Well, you put one woman inside a group of 10 sexist pig men, that woman's ability to affect change is going to be highly limited. So instead of trying to fix this hive mind mentality by just adding more people to it, who are ultimately either going to get with the hive mind or they're going to be silenced, just change the hive mind. That's where I think you really have to begin to foster change, and then all the other things we're looking for will start to work themselves out.
So you are literally arguing for fascist tactics in order to change the gaming industry to suit your needs because they make games that you don't like. Again, this is all because of your collectivist mindset and your fascist outlook on life. You literally want to brainwash people or purge people or change the way that people think forcefully because they don't make games that you like or they don't think the way that you want them to think. This is insanity, what you are arguing for. It is horrible fascism and Stalinism. That is what you are arguing for. Do you not even listen to what you are saying? You are not only saying that the game industry is a hive mind, again, collectivizing and generalizing people in groups, because in order for your argument to work, they all have to think the same and work the same and be the same. You in your head, the gaming industry is full of sexist white men who make sexist games when they don't. It's not full of that. It's full of mainly liberal people making the games that they want to make. It's in your opinion that these games are sexist. It's your opinion that these men are sexist. But the fact remains is, they've not really done something in reality. They just think the way that they want to think and make the games that they want to make. And you're not happy with that, and you want to change that. This is what you're arguing for, mate. You're arguing for fascism. You're arguing for an industry that thinks the same. You basically just want to replace one paradigm with a paradigm that is pretty much the same, but social justice. You're an idiot. You're insane.
You'll start to see more diversity in the workforce. Now,
you won't, though, because you've got to get rid of freedom of choice. And if you don't get rid of freedom of choice, you will still get the same types of people walking into the gaming industry and other industries, and then you will scratch your head and wonder, why the hell has this not worked? Because other people have the freedom of choice to make what they want to make. You literally will have to enforce quotas in order for this shit to happen. And the fact of the matter is, people don't want to be forced to do jobs they don't want to do.
Granted, the issue of women specifically being attracted, or even minorities being attracted to the STEM fields, is for another discussion. I understand that that statistic also plays into why we have some lack of diversity here.
Again, there is no lack of diversity. There isn't. It perfectly reflects the racial demographics. Yeah, it doesn't reflect the gender demographics, but women and men make different choices in life. Women want different jobs. They want to go into more social work, more teaching roles, etc., which are low paying, and therefore they earn less than men. While men tend to go into these more STEM fields and also more dangerous lines of work, which may or may not pay more. So you can't stop people having freedom of choice, mate, unless you try to brainwash them and actually politically take their freedom of choice away, which you will be unable to.
But for the purpose of this discussion, let's just focus on cognitive diversity. But as you fix that thinking, you fix that hive mind, then the people around the hive mind, the issues that used to exist with race, culture, gender, sexual preference, religious preference, really falls away, because if there's cognitive diversity in the hive mind, there's tolerance. And that's really what's at the heart of all of it. There's tolerance.
Stop using these horrible words to describe people with different ways of thinking to your own. You do realise in a gaming company, they don't all think the same way. They don't all politically think the same way. You do realise that it's not a hive mind. The gaming industry is not a hive mind. There are different philosophies on making games. It's not the same thing. There's no committee that says this is the gaming industry and we all think the same way. No, there isn't at all. It's a loose collection of small and massive studios. You have to collectivise people again, because your argument is so weak when you argue it from an individual standpoint. Seriously, tolerance? In a hive mind, if somebody thinks differently, there's immediately an intolerance towards that person thinking differently. You would just replace the supposed intolerance of social justice, well, towards social justice, I might add, from our ways of thinking, which is apparently all the same, which it isn't, from social justice being the head thing and being intolerant of someone like me. If I was to be in the industry and I say, oh, we should do something different, stop it, that's not social justice. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. It's bullshit. Can you not see that?
Here, and there's empathy for the way that other people may react when you build something versus you just trying to spit something out that you think is awesome and trying to make money from it.
Empathy has something to do with it, and that's how you sell a product. You've made something that you think is awesome and hope that people on the market buy it. That's literally how you sell a product. You're an idiot.
And when you have that fixed, I think you naturally and organically start to see better games.
No, you go from Final Fantasy VII to Depression Quest and the Stanley Parable and all that other walking simulator, not games really type stuff. That's what you get. Oh, you also get Female Thor, even though that's not a game, but the whole thing about that, the point still remains. You get shit like that, which is horrible. You get homogeneous, censored rubbish. You get games like Dead or Alive 3 Extreme banned for no reason other than the fact that they have jiggly tits and that people don't like the game. That's it. That's what you get. You do not get a better quality game. That does not do anything at all. It's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's a fact.
And that's what I think on the matter, friends. I welcome all of the cognitive diversity in our gamer life community to tell me that I'm wrong, tell me that I'm right, tell me that you agree or disagree.
No, you don't. Otherwise, you would not be advocating the brainwashing of us all, or the forceful removal of us in order to create more diversity, which is actually, ironically, not what you're arguing for. But never mind. You're arguing for orthodoxy. That's what you're arguing for, mate. Don't bullshit us.
I can't wait to really hear what all of you have to say as it relates to diversity in the games industry and why I believe we're missing the mark across the board. Again, I think it starts at the top with the organizations, works its way down, and then the games that come out are affected by addressing the thinking at the core of an organization.
Are you throwing the hypodermic needle theory at me again? Where it all just trickles down like, hey, take this opinion, think it, from the higher-ups, which is fed through the games to us? No, that's bullshit. Have you seen gamers when they disagree with a developer or a publisher? Just take reference here. Mass Effect 3. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, folks, the rest of this video is him just telling us to send him his videos and he will unspam them and like and subscribe and all that bullshit. So, until next time, I will see you all later.